numbers. So we are 44 days away from inauguration. That's the day that has been penciled in for President Trump to come back into office officially. And 44 is an interesting number. 44. If you spell 44, it comes to 144. 40 is 84, 4 is 60, add them together is 144. There's a few numbers like that, and one of them is 44. So that's an interesting one. 44 is also faith, it's hope, it's ANON, it's mask, and it's also elder. David, hey, Kathy, how you doing? And yeah, 44, 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. That's the infinity number. If you want to double or square the 88, you go to 88. If you want to triple it, 888. Hey Jeanette, hey Dee, how you all doing? So yeah, 44. Yeah. I put some tweets out on Twitter just in the last couple hours after this show. Go and have a look at them. It's more on that theme of heretic. I'm going to say it now. Heretic, despite it being a horror, it descends into kind of a thriller horror. But it's only rated 15, interestingly enough. So the classification for films here is you've got U, PG, PG-13, 12, or 12 PG-13, 15 and 18. So 18 is like the top adult one, but 15 is 15. And so it's a white hat film. It's a white hat film. And the reason for that is, as with a lot of this stuff, it can be quite shocking and controversial at first, but as you delve into it, you see more and more. So one of the characters in this film with Hugh Grant, which is based on Mormon missionaries, and it's very well done, and I know that from first hand. The guy missionary that goes looking for the sister missionaries when they haven't checked in, his name's Elder Kennedy. There you go, Elder Kennedy. Not Elder Trump, but Elder Kennedy. So it goes under the radar, but nevertheless it's there. And so people that know. And Elder Kennedy in numbers will come to 122, America First. 122, Millennium. Elder Kennedy, yeah. I was Elder Bushnell. When I was in Scotland, I was Elder Bushnell. But some people called me Tam. Tom. Tam is 34 Heat in numbers. And there's obviously Tom numbers in the credits of the Heat movie. So you can see how all this stuff works. You know, it always comes back on itself. Circles round, circles back. But that's what it is. Elder Kennedy, yeah. Elder Kennedy is in the movie. He's in the movie. If it was Elder Trump, it'd be far too obvious. But Elder Kennedy sits just nicely, boom, just there, under the radar, but there. And that's what it is. Elder Kennedy. And there's loads of Easter eggs in that film, globally, for the Q movement. Also, personally as well. So I know I'm supposed to talk about it, because I have first-hand experience of this. I know what it's like to be a Mormon missionary. I know that. I've been that. I was a good one. But I used to say about gospel salesmen, I used to say that amongst my missionaries. When I was zone leader, I used to say that. Well, Bricks is 51, Jess. So 51 is Batman, 51 is Solaris. So a lot of the stuff President Trump says publicly has to deflect and and pull the narrative, but he's the master weaver, you know, so everything will be okay. I wouldn't worry. Hey, we've got someone in Greece, Neutrino. What was I saying before that? Missionaries. Can't remember now. What was it? Mormon missionaries. Anyway, I'm going to talk more in depth on this on Twitter and on locals. But to suffice it to say, I think took me maybe a week or two to kind of figure this part out, or maybe I felt it, but just to analyze it, because it's I think the reason this whole thing with this movie's come out right now, and it came out on Halloween actually, which was interesting, but it's the white hats pointing the finger at them. So it starts off, 2 Mormon sister missionaries knock on the door. Hugh Grant opens the door and he goes in, and he starts debating religion with them. And he does a brilliant piece on it actually. Actually, there's a part in the film, this isn't ruining it, but he writes on a chalkboard, well, on 2 doors I'll say, somebody at the door, odd hole, but the Pink Women will show. But he writes on 2 doors, and he writes the word belief in chalk, and he writes disbelief on the other door. And so it's like this setup that he's given them, but he makes his point. And I'd forgotten this until recently, but I met a lot of people on my mission, and I met once or twice similar characters to this Hugh Grant character, and one of them was a guy called Leif Connolly, or Leif Connolly. And I don't know exactly how you spell his name, but I'd assume it's something like L-I-E-F, maybe L-E-I-F, maybe. His name was Leif Connolly, lived in Dumfries, so I don't know if he's still with us or not, but he was Marxist, and he was very forceful in his views, and we would kind of go back and forth and debate, and it wasn't far from the flat we lived in Dumfries, in Traquair. But that's where it was. He was only down the road. We'd meet him. And it reminds me of this Hugh Grant character. But as he's writing the name up, B. Leaf, I was like, that's Leif Connolly. Anyway, so there's just lots of intricacies with this movie. There's other Easter eggs I've mentioned. Tam and Chad are at the top of the list. It's Heretic. Movie name is Heretic. There you go. Cheers, Lee. There you go. Or it's belief and disbelief. So if you can do those again, Lee. It's belief, disbelief. Yeah. But it's a white hat movie. It is. It's white hat. All media is white hat. It's been white hat for a long time. At least since when President Trump activated the storm, when he said, "What storm, Mr." Well, they asked him, "What storm, Mr. President?" At least since then, it's all been under white hat control. The whole thing, it has, because it's an operation to wake up. It's to clean up the world, underground, the dumbs, and to wake up people where they unite. And I was looking at it again today, clips of the film, and I realised this intricacy, and I'm aware of this, and I don't always necessarily fall into this bracket, but as the more I'm aware of it, the more I understand it. So there's this whole thing, isn't there, with people with borders and sovereignty. But there's also a thing with it, when people become sovereign, they become very into themselves. And that's okay to a point, but as with all of it, things can become limited hangouts. So I'm seeing, and we all go through this, but I'm seeing there's lots of people in the movement that are very into themselves, very sovereign, very kind of, everything is about them. And that's okay to a point, because at some level we project our reality. But also there's everyone else amongst us, and are they all holographic perceptions? Maybe. Are they NPCs? Maybe. But I believe, and I think where we're going with the 5D, in fact it has to be that way, that we'll go to a point where we're all one in the same, i.e. we're working together on everything. And so I think as we mature into this, because people are very into it, it's like, you know what, people are, it's like the phrase champagne socialist. Everybody's okay and generous until it affects them. That's just human nature, that's just how it is. And you see it everywhere with people, landlords, landowners. They're like, okay, well, we've got it, but others haven't. that can't exist in a 5D society. It can't. That cannot exist. It's like the RV. The RV will get us to where we're going, but ultimately everybody, in my opinion and my understanding, will have to have the same access to resources, just as you do air. People don't argue over the air. I mean, they would have maybe got to that, but they don't now. We all share the air instantly. If you don't have air for a few seconds, few minutes, then you're out. And so it's the resource that everybody shares all the time. And there's not a charge on it, but it's the flow of energy, it's the flow of prana, it's the flow of energy. And at the same level, I think with all of this whole thing of ownership, it's like if we're one body, then the toe's not going to argue and say, oh, I need more resources than the elbow or the back. Or we have to get past these barriers, and everything in society has been inverted, everything. And so this whole thing of ownership is an interesting thing to ponder and question. It's an interesting question, and I think ultimately we get to the point where we don't really own things. We're all one together, working and living and enjoying. Because when you get into these barriers and this is mine and this is not yours, it creates disharmony. Whereas when the people move together, they vibrate at a high level and everybody can prosper and be together. And I think that's where we're going, and it's understanding that and seeing that, and we're inevitably, the way it's going, we're going to get to that ultimately. Anyway, it's one of the things that came up with the film. So I think with the individualization of religions and people's opinions, because that's the other thing, people can get on their high horse, oh, they're not religious, but then they've got their principles and their ideologies, and that's their religion, that's their thing. As with all of this, you've probably noticed, when you mess with people's beliefs, you find out really quickly what they think of you. And they're people's sacred cows. People, whether it's a religion, a belief system, you mess with those things and people really start to react. They really do. And I think ultimately, if we're all vibrating at a higher level, we're all going to meld into one anyway. I think we'll still be individuals, or maybe we won't. I don't know. That's open to what the future tells us. Yep, trust the plan, Ruben. Yeah. So we'll see how that all works. But this whole thing of, you can't, in a 5D society, you can't have haves and have-nots. Basically, you can't have that. You just can't have that. There's one thing in Mormon theology, and there's probably in other theologies, that they talked about the law of consecration, meaning everything was all put into one pot, and everyone was able to have according to their needs and their wants. And so it was a higher principle of everybody, but by that everybody was more prosperous and would have been more wealthy. It's when you cut flow off. When you cut flow off through, this is mine and this is not yours, that's when you get into problems. And I'm not speaking from a perfect example of it, but I can see as we go further into the game that Christ consciousness, that understanding has to come. It's inevitable. That's where we're going. Because everything here is all about control and about individualization. And people early in the spiritual kind of awakening community can get very into being sovereign in themselves, and that's fine, but it's limited and it's not the final destination. The final destination is everybody is harmonious together, and you cannot have haves and have-nots. You can't have that. So even in the RV, I mean, there might be people that have more initially, maybe, but they'll be doing things for the good of humanity to build up society. And ultimately, and I've known this intrinsically for a while, that ultimately everybody will have to have the same access to everything, just like you do the air. Wealth and resources will be just like the air, and we all share it as and when we require, and there's an unlimited supply of it. And so if you need to breathe heavily at a different time, or you need more oxygen because of your body or your society, then so be it. But there's not going to be someone dictating over to you how much air you can take and how much air you can give, because as you pass out the air, you're putting it back out for the plants and the other beings that might need it. So that's my point. Yeah, ultimately everybody will have access to everything. So Anyway, I will see you tomorrow, everyone. If you want to get your shungite and orgonite, you got your links below. And hey Jeanette, it's facts, it's just, that's how it is. That's how it is. Yeah, that's how it is. Get on Substack as well, because I'll be putting out an email probably this weekend. Thanks Kathy, love you too. All right, and go over to Twitter in a little bit, because there's a video out there with the clips from the film, but I'll be commenting on that as well. So, all right everyone, much love, God bless. See you tomorrow, bye.